Well, happy Friday to you, Messiah Church. Pastor Tami here. I want to start today with a celebration. I would like to celebrate the conclusion of our summer book study, The Power of Bridging, that wrapped up just last week. Over the course of this study, there were over 30 people who participated, and I think some really meaningful things came out of their time together. What I especially appreciate is they didn't just talk about bridging, they each committed to taking one small step, one measurable step to bring the love of neighbor more fully into their lives. And those steps, they look different for each person. For some, it meant moving towards a greater love and acceptance of a difficult family member. For others, it meant becoming a better listener, really listening to hear the other person's stories and trying to understand where they're coming from. And yet for others, it meant taking a risk, getting to know people who are outside of their usual circles or comfort zones. Small steps, but potentially really big bridges. I'm so grateful for Messiah member Sandra Weinzerl as she shared her gifts and talents in facilitating this learning experience. And our Minnesota Annual Conference leadership has noticed this work too. And in fact, they've written a story about it. It is on the website, and you can read that story for yourself by going to minnesotaumc.org. It's right there on their homepage. You can't miss it. Really, creating bridges and building belonging while pushing back against othering might be some of the most important work that we can do together. That's exactly what Jesus did, isn't it? He was constantly moving towards people that others pushed away. The sick, the sinful, the forgotten, the overlooked. I think most of us have had experiences in our life where we have felt like the outsider and the one who's being left out and overlooked. So maybe this week you'll look for one opportunity to build a bridge. Maybe that means you just listen a little longer before speaking. Maybe it means you reach out to someone who just kind of rubs you the wrong way with a friendly hello or a brief conversation or a plate of cookies. Maybe it means that you sit with someone and let them know that they are not alone. You never know how much one small step might make a difference in someone else's life. Now, speaking of seeing things differently, this Sunday we're going to continue in our sermon series, Old Stories, New Eyes, with a message entitled Seeing Jesus in Unexpected Places, as we look at the parable of the talents, also sometimes called the parable of the valuable coins. Now, we usually hear this story being about productivity and good stewardship, about wisely and generously using the gifts that God has given us. But what if there's something deeper going on here? Like, what does this story tell us about how we see God, who we believe that God is? I mean, is God a harsh taskmaster that we should fear? Or is God more like a loving parent, a source of abundance and grace and possibility? So on Sunday, we're going to wrestle with those questions together and think about how fear can cause us to shrink back, and what it might look like to live more boldly and trust in God's expansive and generous grace. We're also going to have a special guest with us on Sunday. LaDonna Hoy is no stranger to Messiah Church. LaDonna is the founder and for 40 years was the executive director of Interfaith Outreach Community Partners, IOCP, just across the street from Messiah Church. And in 2020, she stepped into a consulting role with an organization called Outreach Development Corporation. So after worship on Sunday, LaDonna is going to talk to us about some creative housing partnerships and some of the ways our communities are working together to address the very real challenges of housing. She's going to share some stories from our own community and help us think about what can happen when we become more informed and engaged. So after worship, you're invited to grab a cup of coffee and a treat. We're going to meet in Heritage Hall, and she'll start her presentation around 11 a.m. I think it's going to be a really good conversation, so I hope you'll plan to stick around. All right, one more quick heads up about this Sunday. Tomorrow, Saturday, August 8th, we're going to be putting the finishing touches on our youth room floor as a part of our capital campaign improvement projects. And as you might imagine, with a process like this comes some potential odor. Now, we're doing this work on Saturdays so that it doesn't affect our Bloom daycare kiddos or staff, and with the hopes and possibility of having the smell leave the building before worship on Sunday morning. Last Sunday, day one of this process, there weren't any residual smells in the building on Sunday, but just to be safe and out of abundance of caution, if you are someone for whom odors are really sensitive or upsetting, you might want to worship from home online this Sunday. And finally, could I ask you to keep Pastor Bethany and her family in your prayers today? Today they are gathering to celebrate the life of their beloved Grandma Marilyn. Would you pray that this is a day of comfort and hope and deep peace for their family as they celebrate this life that was well lived? All right, Messiah Church, I hope you have a great weekend. I'm looking forward to worshiping with you on Sunday, whether you are in person or online. So until then, take care. Keep looking for ways to build those bridges, and keep your eyes open for those unexpected places where God is already showing up. So until Sunday, take care. God bless.